Good afternoon, and welcome to the Wednesday afternoon conference call with Trusts Unlimited. This is Jim George speaking. I'm the non-attorney spokesman and facilitator for Trusts Unlimited. I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to join us for this call, particularly those of you calling in for the first time and those that will be listening undoubtedly to our replay over the next 24 to 48 hours. We like to move quickly on these calls, bottom line the information for you. We know you're busy people, you have other things to do. We have a standard format. We spend a few minutes talking about the revaluation of these currencies, a few minutes talking about the program that we've put into place to assist you, and then we go to a brief Q&A. So let's go ahead and get started. First, by way of a disclaimer, Trusts Unlimited is not the purveyor of these currencies. We are not advocating the purchase or sale of these currencies, but we are rather sharing with you as substantial currency holders ourselves the information that we think is relevant. First point would be to discuss the window for the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, which we continue to believe is the base currency for these other currencies. I still believe that the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar will occur in the first quarter of this year. But there has been a glitch, which we're going to get into. The CBI, the Central Bank of Iraq, had attempted the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar in January, but it was, in fact, as I understand it, held up by the United States through the NSA, the National Security Administration. Now, I try not to get into our domestic politics when discussing these issues, and certainly our attorneys would prefer that I not do that. But when domestic politics becomes a factor, I'm going to have to address it, and I'm going to address it here. I'm going to speak specifically about the NSA's intrusion into the CBI's attempt to reinstitute their currency. The stated reason for doing this was the NSA's concern for undue Iranian influence in Iraq and their attempts to circumvent the sanctions that the United States has placed on Iran. And there is some truth to that. But in my opinion, and again, this is my opinion, that's not really the reason that they're trying to hold up the reinstitution of the currency. It is true that the United States did not want Iraq to use U.S. dollars to purchase the necessary and needed Iranian natural gas until they get, of course, their infrastructure back in place. And it is true that once the Iraqi dinar becomes a global currency, by utilizing it to purchase natural gas from Iran, Iran can then convert that to U.S. dollars or whatever else that they want. But again, in my opinion, that's not really what the NSA was doing. And the reason I'm going to qualify this, I have never seen in my life what's going on with the United States government right now. There's a difference between the loyal opposition, and there is the difference between that and blatant obstructionism, which is what's going on right now. In my opinion, the reason that the NSA stepped in is because some of the Obama administration holdovers and some of the employees at these government agencies simply do not want to see the reemergence of Iraq for a number of reasons. First, the reemergence of Iraq would put a lie to the notion that the Iraq war was the quote-unquote bad war. Second, the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar would undoubtedly lead to the revaluation of the currency globally, which would then create anywhere from 6 to 8 million millionaires in the United States, people that certainly would not be voting for larger government and higher taxes in 2020. So in my opinion, and again, this is my opinion, that the United States, through the NSA stepping in, is a purely partisan political move. And in my view, it's a despicable situation. Hopefully, the Obama administration will not allow this to occur. Of course, the president is preoccupied right now, not only with this rogue investigation with Robert Mueller, but also the Democrats doing everything they can to obstruct the creation of a physical barrier on our southern border, Those are the issues, that are first and foremost right now, but hopefully we'll get around to this other issue, because I know that the Trump administration wants to see this reinstitution occur. They just want to make sure that it's done with minimal influence from Iran and without affecting substantially the sanctions that are in place for Iran. Now, the other issue in Iraq that's still fomenting is the formation of the new government. They have still not created the new government because there is still not agreement on several of the ministerial positions in Prime Minister Mahdi's cabinet. There is a parliamentary session scheduled for February 5th. Mahdi has been invited there to brief Parliament on his choices for the openings of the ministerial openings for defense, interior, and security. A lot of things could happen. These individuals could all be approved. These individuals, or confirmed, these individuals could be rejected, or maybe one or two of them could be approved. The solution would probably be in order to get the government formed, would be for Mahdi to agree to a temporary appointment of certain individuals for, say, 60 or 90 days, giving the government more time to come to nominees that could eventually be confirmed. So hopefully that's what's going to occur. I think that's what will occur. I do think that the Iraqi dinar will reinstitute in country. The only thing at this point that could hold it off, other than this governmental issue, which I think will be resolved, would be once again if certain sectors of our own government, for their own political reasons, try to stop this. Remember, this could have happened all the way back in 2012 had it not been for Maliki, had it not been for Obama's failure to re-up the status of forces agreement with Iraq. So there are, unfortunately, players in this country for political reasons that do not want to see the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. And hopefully we have someone in the White House who's going to put his foot down and say, no, you're not going to stop this. It's good for their country, and it's good for our country. That's basically the information we have. The next step, from my perspective, is to share with you the program that we've put into place to assist you, because despite the fact that this is not all good news for today, I again do believe the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar is quite possible in the first quarter, which means people are running out of time to get their affairs in order, or may not even know what that would involve. To that end, Trusts Unlimited has put a turnkey program in place to assist you. Phase 1 is pre-RV. Phase 2 is post-RV. Phase 1 involves the establishment of a pre-RV package of asset protection trusts. Phase 2 involves all the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. So let's start with Phase 1, which is the establishment of your package of pre-RV asset protection trusts. Very simply, a trust is a legal instrument one can establish to hold, to manage, to protect assets. Trust can fall in some basic categories. For example, a trust can be revocable, or a trust can be irrevocable. In order to have the asset protection you're going to need and want, you're going to need to establish a package of irrevocable trusts, and that package must be established prior to the revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies for the following reasons. First, by establishing this trust package, you will preserve your privacy and your anonymity. That's because assets held within an irrevocable trust are sealed, and the general public will have no knowledge of your net worth or your actual holdings. Second, by establishing this pre-RV asset protection trust package, you'll be able to successfully avoid personal IRS scrutiny. If you're holding these currencies in direct title when they revalue, the IRS computers will most likely spit out an audit. And with the potential magnitude of this revaluation relative to your prior year's earnings, you're probably going to be looking at a full-blown 6-year audit. Such an audit's going to be time-consuming, it's going to be frustrating, and frankly, it's probably going to cost you more than an asset protection trust package. On the other hand, if your trust package is in place pre-RV, and your currencies are assigned to that trust package, you will have successfully transferred the taxable event from yourself personally to the trust. Now, this is important for several reasons. First, if the taxable event occurs within the trust, there's less than a 10% chance of an IRS audit. But even if the IRS determines to audit your trust, they can't do a 6-year audit. Why? Because the only taxable event within the trust will be the revaluation itself. The third reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV trust package is if you plan on gifting currency to family and friends in certain situations. Philanthropic gifting can always be done on a tax-preferred basis, either pre- or post-RV. But in order to avoid a substantial 40% federal gift tax, you're going to need to gift currencies to friends and family prior to their revaluation. Now, if you're gifting to individuals that you have no problem giving them the currency to exchange for themselves, or giving them the lump sum after you have conducted the exchange, that can be accomplished outside of a trust with a standard gift letter. But if you are hesitant for any reason to give these individuals the post-RV lump sum, then you can gift to them through our trust. We have created a special gift subtrust for this purpose. By gifting to these individuals through the subtrust, their USD will be protected along with yours. The language of this subtrust allows you to gift up to a certain amount of a currency or currencies, meaning that you can gift the exact US dollar amount that you had in mind, irrespective of the exchange rate. But because you'll be gifting through the trust, you will be able to manage, invest, and distribute the money to these individuals as you deem appropriate. The fourth reason you'd want to establish this trust package is because it's been structured in such a way as to allow your estate to bypass the cost and delay of probate and the federal estate tax. I'll give you 2 quick scenarios. Scenario number 1, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, leaving your heirs an estate of $25 million. Now that estate must go through probate, a process that ordinarily can take anywhere from 6 to 18 months. But probate is a public disclosure process, meaning that the general public will be aware of the size of your estate, who your heirs are, and how much they each stand to inherit. So if anyone feels they have a legitimate claim against you, your estate, or your heirs, they can simply file that claim with a probate court. And that could tie the estate up for years and in some cases even decades. And your heirs will have either limited access or no access at all to their respective inheritance until the probate process is completed. Then there's something called the federal estate tax, the tax that the federal government will assess in order for that estate to be transferred to heirs. Under current law, approximately $10 million of that $25 million estate would bypass any federal estate tax, but the balance could be taxed as much as 55%. Scenario number 2, you purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000. The day after that, you assign those currencies on paper to our asset protection trust package. The day after that, those currencies revalue for $25 million. The day after that, you pass away, but this time that $25 million estate would be protected in our asset protection trust package. As a result, there would be no probate, there would be no public disclosure of your estate, your heirs would have immediate access to their respective inheritance, and the federal estate tax would be 0, saving your heirs as much as 55% of their inheritance. The fifth reason you'd want to establish this pre-RV asset protection trust package is for some very specific asset protection benefits. One pre-RV, one post-RV. Pre-RV, this trust package will allow you to circumvent something called the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act. What does that mean? Under our system of civil procedure, you can only be sued for what you own in direct title or the value of property at the time you transfer it out of title to an entity like our trust package. So let's take the previous example from before. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer those currencies to our trust. They subsequently revalue for $25 million. You begin to live a lifestyle more reflective of your newfound wealth, and a couple of years down the road, someone sees that you're living rather comfortably and decides for whatever reason that they're going to sue you. Well, this prospective plaintiff has a couple of problems. First, he or she better have a very strong case and very deep pockets, because this trust is structured in such a way as to make it extremely expensive and extremely time-consuming to pursue civil litigation. Second, and most importantly, once the prospective plaintiff learns that pursuant to the Uniform Fraudulent Transfer Act, the only thing they could ever win by way of a civil award would be $5,000. The value of the property at the time you transferred it to our trust package, and none of the post-RV value of $25 million. In that case, there will be no lawsuit. Post-RV, there's a benefit I like to refer to as limited liability stop loss. This protects you from future bad acts after you have acquired this wealth. This protection is accomplished through a legal strategy called segregation of assets. And this is how it would work. Again, we'll use the same example. You purchase 5 million dinar for $5,000, transfer the currencies to the trust. They revalue for $25 million. Now that you have $25 million in trust, you decide to make some purchases. So you purchase a larger primary residence, a vacation home, perhaps a half a dozen rental properties for tax write-off and additional cash flow, a couple of cars, a boat, and let's say an RV. But as you purchase these items, you place each of them in their own separate subtrust to be managed by your master trust. Now, why is this an important asset protection strategy? Well, let's say one day you're driving one of your new cars, you have an accident. The accident is clearly your fault, and tragically someone is seriously injured or even killed. Well, the family of the victim is going to want to sue you. But remember, civil suits are about monetary awards, and you don't legally own anything. So the plaintiffs would be left to sue the owner of the car that you were driving. Well, who owns that car? One of your subtrusts, of which you are merely the beneficiary. And what's in that subtrust? Merely that one car and the car insurance policy. In that scenario, the car insurance carrier will negotiate an out-of-court settlement with the victim's family. You will not be involved in those rather unpleasant negotiations. The car insurance carrier will repair or replace your car, making you whole. And this is important. All of your other assets are safely protected in other subtrusts. Now, why are those assets protected? They're protected because under the law, those separate subtrusts are separate legal entities, and the plaintiffs would have no standing to pursue a separate legal entity. So this trust package works very much the way a barge would work, where all of the valuable cargo is stored in a series of small compartments. Why? In the event that any compartment is ever breached, the only potential loss would be the cargo in that one compartment. The cargo in the other compartments is safe and secure due to the firewalls, and the barge will never sink. Now, these benefits are lost to you if you do not establish your asset protection trust package prior to the revaluation of these currencies. Now, there is one other benefit, and it's this. If you are, in fact, the holder of one of our pre-RV asset protection trust packages, then you will be eligible to participate in Phase 2, all of the products, services, and professional referrals that will be made available to you after the revaluation of these currencies. I'll just make mention of one here today. Trusts Unlimited will be sponsoring a post-RV seminar in Disney World, Florida, approximately 30 days after the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. Present at that seminar will, of course, be the staff of Trusts Unlimited to assist you with the management and funding of your trust products post-RV. Many of our clients have also expressed desires to establish scholarship funds foundational trusts, special needs trusts, charitable remainder trusts, and even the more complicated 501c3 nonprofit and offshore trusts. And the proper way to fund those entities is by transferring funds directly from your pre-RV asset protection trust to those newly formed entities. We'll have our tax specialists there to help you with all of the tax issues that will necessarily come to the surface after this revaluation. We'll also have our offshore specialists there as well. They will show you that by establishing offshore title of certain assets, you can substantially reduce and in some cases eliminate future taxes on the reinvestment of the net proceeds from the revaluation itself. We'll also have our independent fee-based wealth managers there as well. You're going to want to reposition assets after the revaluation for a number of reasons. First, we know statistically that 95% of all windfalls, however large and from whatever source, are lost within 3 to 5 years due to inexperience, mismanagement, and fraud. We also know that under the new G20 bank bail-in provisions, the failure of banks in the future will no longer be made whole through the general taxing authority of the respective governments, but first and foremost by the confiscation of funds from the accounts at those banks. So you're going to want to get your money out of the banks and it work in other markets as quickly as possible. And third, the general global shift from fiat-based to commodity-based Basel III compliant currencies in and of itself is going to create extremely volatile financial markets and put additional risk on fiat-based currencies. So you want to get a substantial amount of your money out of financial assets and into tangible assets. Now, our trust package is initially a package of 10 trusts consisting of one master trust, which will hold your assigned currencies pre-RV and then hold financial assets like bank accounts and investment accounts post-RV. One optional gift subtrust if you wish to gift to friends and family through the trust, which subtrust can be converted to a standard subtrust along with the 8 additional standard subtrusts that will hold physical assets like homes, cars, boats, etc. Now, this was the simplification of a rather sophisticated trust package that we've utilized in the past for our more affluent clients, a package that had an initial cost of anywhere from $6,000 to $10,000. But some years ago when we decided to work with denarians, we knew that that price tag was going to be unaffordable. So by back-end loading the product to post-RV, we've been able to reduce the cost to $3,000. There are several ways you can pay for that. If you pay us up front, we'll discount the price further to $2,500, saving you an additional $500. If that's not possible, we do have a deferred payment arrangement. You'd make an initial payment of $525, which sum would basically offset our out-of-pocket costs just to produce and deliver your trust. The balance of the $3,000 would then be paid in $100 monthly installments. We will charge no interest. The only proviso is once the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar occurs, any unpaid balance would need to be paid within 30 days. So with the deferred payment arrangement, anybody that has currencies and understands the need for getting their affairs in order and their trust in place pre-RV should be in a position to afford to do so. We'll have a suggestion. We do accept credit cards. When you pay us up front with a credit card, not only will you get the $500 discount, but the minimum payment on your credit card would be less than the $100 a month you'd pay under our deferred payment arrangement. But we will work with you in whatever method works best for you. Our objective is to help you get your affairs in order and trust in place for all of the reasons that I've stated here this afternoon. So I'd like to thank you for listening to the call. I hope it's been informative. We're going to go to a Q&A in just a moment. If you're a newer caller and interested in what we've had to say, I suggest you have a pencil and paper handy because I will give you our contact information. We'll be happy to send you our initial information package. You're under absolutely no obligation by receiving this package. It does include everything you need if you should make the decision to proceed with establishing your pre-RV asset protection trust. This package has a lot of information about us, about the revaluation, about trusts in general. You can review the package. You're welcome to contact us if you have any questions. We'll be happy to answer those questions, and there will be no consultation fee. Again, we're doing everything we can to help you make an informed decision prior to the revaluation of these currencies for the reasons that I've stated. So I'm going to go ahead and open the Q&A. When I do, we have two quick rules on the Q&A. We take no service calls on the Q&A. This is reserved for individuals that have questions about our product and those that are may be interested in receiving our initial package. And for obvious reasons, your name and number must be on the screen to participate in the Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and open it now. And while I'm waiting for any potential questions, I'd like to give you our contact information. Actually, before I do that, I have been remiss. There's one thing I did neglect to mention. Again, for our newer callers, I'd like to tell you just a little bit about Trusts Unlimited and why you may want to seriously consider allowing us to assist you. Our trust package was authored by our attorney, Robert Bly. He's been a practicing attorney for over 40 years, specializing in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning. I myself hold degrees in political science, macroeconomics, and finance. I've worked in these areas for over 38 years, and I, along with my clients, were personally involved in the reinstatement of the Kuwaiti dinar in the early 90s. So between the two of us, Robert Bly and I have over 78 years' experience working precisely in these areas, and I frankly know of no firm that can make that claim. Now, Bob and I have been working together for a decade in the areas of estate planning, asset protection, and offshore planning, and it has been disheartening from time to time to see people walk away from sound estate planning and trust creation because of the mistaken belief that by doing so they have somehow lost control of their assets and their affairs. In point of fact, it's just the reverse. It's when you hold assets in direct title that you can lose control of them. And invariably, it's at precisely those times in life that you need and want control. If you've lived for any length of time, you've either experienced in your own life or through friends and family things like unexpected divorce, permanent incapacitation, the onset of dementia, premature death and prolonged and complicated probate processes. Then there are investment losses, business losses, and even bankruptcies. The number 2 loss of wealth now in the aggregate, courtesy of the information age, is identity theft. But the number 1 loss of personal wealth remains confiscation through civil litigation. Anything you own in direct title can be taken from you. So in point of fact, the only way that you can manage, protect, and control everything at all times and in all circumstances is through the establishment of a package of irrevocable trusts, and particularly if you have an asset like these currencies that you anticipate a substantial increase in value. And we at Trusts Unlimited will do everything we can to help you accomplish your personal and financial objectives both pre- and post-RV as we understand them. Now, before, again, we go to the Q&A, I want to give you our contact information. You can go to our website, which is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc.com. Our email address is trusts with an S, unlimitedllc@gmail.com. Our phone service is 307-274-4122. If you'd like to listen to a recent conference call playback, or if you'd be kind enough to refer us to someone that might be interested in our services, you can either go to YouTube and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can go to IQD calls and then go to Trusts Unlimited, or you can simply dial the same number that you dialed for this live call this afternoon, with the exception of the last 2 digits. Rather than dialing 40, you'll dial 39 and then use the same access code, which is 739-394-pound. If you'd like to be included on our email list, you go to our website, go to the bottom, enter your name and email address where indicated. You should be on our email list within 24 hours. Bear in mind that we only send emails out very periodically pre-RV, but after the reinstitution and revaluation of the dinar and these other currencies, emails with important information may be going out as often as daily. So let's go ahead and go to our Q&A. Our first caller is from area code 314. Hello? That's 314. Go ahead. Go ahead, sir. Hello?
Hello, this is Joel from Missouri.
Yes, sir.
Sorry about it. It's cutting in and out. It was a whopping negative 9 degrees here this morning.
Oh, wow. Wow.
One of my questions is when you were speaking about the current administration and having a difficulty, with the political fight or whatever with this, what kind of power do you see them having in forcing this through? I mean, it seems like this has been an issue in the past. What's keeping them from just pushing this on for another 2 years?
Well, you're right. Theoretically, anything could happen. What would need to happen is the President of the United States that has jurisdiction over the NSA would have to go to the Treasury Department and direct them to instruct the CBI that we are going to go ahead with the reinstitution and accept the reinstitution of your currency. The point I was trying to make is that we have this little conclave of obstructionists who, for their own political reasons, whether it be the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar, a physical barrier on our border, whatever the issue is, there are entrenched individuals that are hell-bent on obstructionism. And in this particular case, it has to do with the reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar. As I said earlier, we try as hard as we can to avoid bringing domestic politics into this, but that is what has occurred here, and that's why it has to be brought up. Now, the prior administration had no interest in the revaluation of the Iraqi dinar. That's not the case here, so that's where we are.
The reason I was asking about it was it seemed, and you never know what to believe, but there for a long time we were led to believe that the United States had control of this, and then we were led to believe, well, no, this is in Iraq's hands. We're just waiting for Iraq to do this on their own. The United States is not in control of it. So go ahead.
Well, the United States and the IMF have a say. In other words, Iraq cannot do it without them because the IMF simply does not.
Hello?
In fact, if they go ahead and reinstitute their currency, that doesn't mean that the IMF is going to automatically revalue. There are certain boxes that needed to be checked, and then there's the standby agreement that Iraq had with the IMF and the UN. So there are things that need to get done. This is a different situation here. This is where an agency within the federal government, in my opinion, has overstepped their bounds because at the end of the day, it's going to be the Treasury Department that makes the decision. Now, if the NSA has an issue, they can take it to the president, or they can take it they can take it to the president, who can then make a determination. I guess it's possible that the president was involved in this, but and he's very negative about Iran and their influence in the country. But the reinstitution of the currency is the best way to make sure that Iran is not involved in Iraq, because Iraq will then have the financial capability to deal with any other country they want.
Yeah.
So that's where we are, and it's unfortunate that so many decisions that affect our lives are being made for purely political reasons. I've mentioned a couple of them here. I don't like to be political on this stuff, but I'm going to call a spade a spade. If anyone doesn't like it, change the channel.
Oh no, I understand. It's not that at all. It just seems,
I have never seen
that someone had that much power.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, what's happened is over the years we have entrenched employees in federal government agencies, and they have to be reined in. It's unfortunate that this has occurred. They call it shadow government, but if you know the history of republics, they always die for the very same reason, internally, because of internal corruption. And like I said, there's a difference between the loyal opposition and blatant, blind partisan obstructionism, and that's what we've been witnessing. It's not a matter of whether you agree or disagree with the administration. It's a matter of who's the duly elected president and who gets to call the shots while he's in office.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. If you disagree with him, then you vote him out of office. You don't illegally obstruct, and that's what's been going on. And I think this could be a very interesting year, because I think a lot of things are going to come to head this year, one way or the other.
Yeah. So if this wouldn't have occurred, you feel strongly that just in the last week or so they would have been able to release their currency.
I feel like CBI would have made a formal announcement to all the relevant parties that they intended to reinstitute, that it probably would have gone through. Now, whether the IMF 10 days or over 30 days, then took them out of the program rate is another issue. Then we're in another, we're in another scenario there, because the reinstitution is step one. That's why I get upset with the gurus which say, well, it's going to happen tomorrow, it's going to happen tomorrow. They're leaving out a step. It has to reinstitute in country before the IMF will take them out of the program rate. And that can take anywhere from 30 days. So whenever they say, oh, it's going to reinstitute on Friday, today's Wednesday, and these gurus get on there and say, oh, it's going to pop on Friday, how's that going to happen without the reinstitution? It's not rocket science. Well, I'm not talking about the RV. I'm talking about the RI. That's what was stopped. Mm-hmm. So hopefully this is going to get resolved. If the parliamentary session scheduled for February 5th goes well, and the new government is organized, even if it's on an interim basis for 60 to 90 days, I think the CBI is going to come back again, and hopefully the NSA will, unless they have just cause, will be overridden by the President of the United States.
Huh. Well, thank you.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay, our next caller is area code 347.
Yeah, hello?
7.
Yes, could you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this is Praveen from New York. Okay. Now, I know that Trump has control of the NSA, but why didn't he override the NSA the first time?
He might. Now, I do know that he is probably even more concerned than some of our intelligence communities about the influence of Iran. I do know that that's on the screen with him. But you're right. I think at the end that might be what has to happen. And it probably will happen. As a matter of fact, it looks as though a lot of things that are going to get done is he's going to have to either go by executive order or just exercise his authority as the commander-in-chief to get things done. It's unfortunate that it's come to this, but I think that's where we are.
No, but what I mean is, okay, so that means this. So I mean, you think you think that's part of why Trump temporarily reopened the government. He temporarily stopped the government shutdown because of this? Do you think that's the reason, or?
No, I thought, in my opinion, the government shutdown had to do with the funding of a southern barrier.
Yeah, it did, but that's the main thing. But do you think this is another part of the reason it hasn't reopened?
No, because I think the president can authorize the Treasury Department to go ahead and okay the reinstitution of the currency, and then the only thing that would remain would be the IMF, and I'm sure the IMF would agree with whatever the United States Treasury wanted to do. So,
so obviously the CBI can't really act on. I mean, it can act on its own, but they have to do it in concert with the U.S., the NSA.
The reason they need the tacit approval from the United States and the IMF is because those entities can stop the revaluation. They can reinstitute, but they don't want to do it without the at least tacit approval of these other folks, because these are the people that are going to decide whether or not it's going to revalue globally. So,
okay.
And of course, the other issue is over the last 2 years, you can see that there have been rogue agencies that have just done things which then Trump had to go and undo. So, like I said, he's got a lot on his plate right now. He's dealing with the 3 weeks of negotiations for the southern barrier and the border security. He's dealing with the final report from Mueller. He's got, we have the presidential 2020 campaign heating up, and we have all of that activity. There's just a lot of things going on, and the revaluation might be number one on our laundry list, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's number one on his. So, he's a busy guy. He'll get to it, and that's why I still think the reinstitution will happen in the first quarter.
Okay. Well, I'm hoping, because if it shuts down again, then he may delay this again for a while. The government shuts down again.
I don't think there'll be a shutdown. What I think he'll do is, I think pursuant to the Federal Emergencies Act, he's going to go ahead and authorize funding by diverting other funds. I think the Democrats will then run to the Ninth Circuit to try to rescind that. I think that the Ninth Circuit judges will probably try to put a stay on that. I think he'll then go and have a fast track to the Supreme Court. I suspect the Supreme Court will uphold the use of the Federal Emergencies Act, which is an unfortunate precedent. I don't want to see that, but that may be the only way to get this done. Who knows what's going to happen? But again, those issues, unfortunately, are more important than our desire for the RV. So, we'll just have to see how it plays out.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir. Bye-bye. Our next caller is area code 405. That's 405. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you very much. I have a sort of hypothetical. Let's say that you have 2 million dinar in your trust, and that the RV value comes in at $3, and so technically you have a value of $6 million. If you were to only elect to exchange 1 million of those dinars and basically get a value of $3 million, is the additional million that is still in the trust considered taxable at the new rate or the new value of the dinar, or does it still sit there at the value that you initially paid for it?
Okay. I'm going to refer you to Section 988E2 of the Internal Revenue Code. It says that when there is a substantial increase in the value of a currency, if the profit that you would enjoy from the exchange would exceed $200, then the tax is due. The IRS is telling us that the taxable event with currencies is the date of the revaluation itself, not the date of the exchange. But 988E2, along with Publication 525, do refer to the gain as a cap gain, not ordinary income. So, in addition, Section 643B of the Code says that the profit from the exchange, if it occurs within a trust, is tax deferred. So if we follow the Code and publications as they're written right now, it means that the exchange, that the increase in value is in of itself the taxable event, but it's taxed as cap gain outside of a trust and it's tax deferred within a trust. Here's the problem. The IRS versus, or rather the United States versus Caterpillar 1978 allows the IRS on a de facto, post facto basis rather, to reinterpret a statute, which means that they could come along and say whether it's in or out of a trust, it's ordinary income. So we don't know what the tax is going to be, but the code pursuant to 988E2 basically says that the taxable event is the date of the revaluation, not the date of the exchange.
I understand. Also, the classification of the value, would it be determined on, number one, how long you have held the dinars, or how long the dinars have been assigned to your trust? Basically, short-term versus long-term.
It's just how long you've held them. If you've held them for over a year and you transfer, it doesn't matter. That's the way the law has worked. If you've held the currencies for over a year, it's long-term gain, if they honor that. But again, right. 643B says if it's in trust, it's tax deferred. Now, we are not counting on that. So let's say, for example, the revaluation occurred today. That would give us time to force the IRS to give us a private letter ruling explaining exactly what the tax implication would be, because there'd be no tax due until April 15th. That would also allow us to hold the currency, if there is a tax due, to allow it to appreciate further prior to April 15th. Now, if the revaluation occurs on March 26th, obviously we're not going to have time to get a private letter ruling from the IRS, so we would be forced to pay the ordinary income tax and therefore forced to exchange sufficient currency to pay the ordinary income tax and then file simultaneously for a refund based on 988E2 and Section 643B. That's why when I hear these gurus want to get it done before the end of a quarter, or like they were praying that it would get done at the end of December, I'm thinking, what are you guys doing? It's the end of December. You don't want it now. You want it in January, because that gives us time to deal with the tax issue and, the exchange rate. But, we're going to have to deal with whatever happens down the road.
Now, when you're talking about April 15th, are you talking about this year or next year? Primarily because April 15th of this year would be relevant to all taxable events that happened in 2018.
Remember, on 1099 and investment income, you're supposed to pay quarterly. If you do not pay your quarterly tax, it's 100% penalty.
Got it. Okay, I understand.
See? So I'm sorry.
Go ahead. No, please go.
I was going to say, if you'd listen to my prior calls, I've said we need this to happen. If it's going to happen we need it to happen in the first half of a given quarter to give us time to compel the IRS to tell us what the hell's going on, so we know what the tax is, if there is a tax, and we know how much currency we need to exchange, and we can hold it as long as possible if we want to.
Excellent. Last question. We have established our EIN number for the trust that we have with you, and the last phase is, do we need to register that in Wyoming, or can we do that within the state that we hold the trust?
You don't have to register it anywhere. It's common law trust. It doesn't get registered anywhere.
So this is the initial the legalization of it is basically to have established the EIN number?
The EIN number establishes that it's a legal entity, and that with that EIN number, you can now establish financial accounts like bank accounts and investment accounts, because that's the number. When you go to the bank to do your exchange, they will set up a trust bank account using that EIN. So even if you have a legitimate trust and you've assigned the currencies to the trust, the bank cannot set up a bank account number unless you have an EIN number. The same if you had a corporation. A corporate charter is what you need in order for them to then, so you can get an EIN number and get a corporate bank account. It's the same deal.
Right. Thank you very much. Been very helpful.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Yes, sir. Take care. Bye-bye. Okay, our last caller, for some reason, had been cut off. I suspect he'll probably try to get back in. I'm going to go ahead and close out. Again, I'd like to thank all of you for taking the time to listen to this call. I hope it's been informative. I know some of the information is a little bit frustrating. It is for me. But I hope that we get back on track, and I still think that a reinstitution of the Iraqi dinar is very possible in the first quarter. Please contact us if the things we've discussed are of interest. We'll be happy to send you our initial package. Once again, you're under absolutely no obligation by receiving this package. We'll be happy to answer any questions you may have. There will be no consultation fee. Our next call is scheduled for next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Certainly, if something of a dramatic nature were to happen between now and then, we'll try to get out an emergency email and schedule an emergency conference call. But failing that, we will be back next Wednesday, noon Eastern, 9 a.m. Pacific. Bye-bye, everyone. Have a great week.